Howdy y'all, Bill Luciano, Eyes to See, Ears to Hear news coming at you again. Part 2, Fiona, Barnett's Candy Girl. Let me get this window, but this is going to be a long video, so I'm going to go ahead and start it. Get her going. Right back where we left off.
Here at all. Very.
Bill Luciano, Eyes to See, Ears to Hear news coming at you. Documentary style. FIONA BARNETT, The Candy Girl. Documentary Part 2.
Dressed at the moment. Brought here by my Lithuanian grandmother, Helena Miloweska or Holovchek. And we waited for nightfall. We got off at Waterfall train station, I believe. We were met here. Dr. Mark, Leonis Petriscus, was here. The red-headed mistress or partner or whatever of the Engadine policeman. My Uncle David Holozak, my father's younger half-brother. And there were at least 2 other people here. There could have been 6 to 8 people looking down on me.
I was right out of my depths. Right out of my depths. Absolutely.
This is probably the worst memory from my childhood. I looked in the grave and there was a partially decomposed, there was a body of a partially decomposed, light-haired person. It was at least shoulder length, blondish, pale coloured hair. It was half decomposed, there was maggots. So it was fresh. It's a body that my perpetrators had put in here and prepared, here's one prepared earlier. It was all ready to go. So like I said, there was at least 6 people. They had straps, picked my body up on the straps and lowered me down into a very deep hole. They laid me face up on top of the partially decomposed body. They were chanting. They were dressed in robes. I was naked. I have a very clear memory of being lowered down and them. It wasn't quite. I can see light, the silhouettes of them. So it must have been not too dark, or it's a full moon, something like that. And they're chanting to their pagan gods. And this is a rebirth ceremony. The decomposed body inside is called a ghoul. I was told that it would come to life once the lid was closed or once I was in there. I believe this thing was going to come to life. They put the lid on top and it went completely dark. And I thought this thing was then grabbing me and suffocating me. I was screaming my head off. I was screaming as much as an 8-year-old could scream, as loud as I could scream. I was screaming for God. I was screaming, Jesus, help me. I was terrified beyond words. And I exhausted all the oxygen in there. They left me in there too long. They didn't mean to do that. And I died. And I woke up in the emergency room of Sutherland Hospital. The room was tiled from floor to ceiling in pale bluish tiles. I was on a metal slab. There was an old oxygen tank, a big oxygen tank in the room. There was a big light shining in my eyes. There were nurses in shower caps. And one nurse and I had a mask on my face, and one nurse said to me, "We nearly lost you." She was very warm, and then she said, "Mummy's here," and oh, my heart leapt. I thought my mum was there. I could see the door to my right. Wasn't Mummy, it was the red-headed witch that had helped lower me in the grave, the lover of Leonis Petriscus, and I don't know what she was, whether she was the wife or whatever of the fat Engadine policeman. She was a slim-built woman with very red hair, long red hair, and she had a black crucifix on a gold chain. And I remember looking at her and just thinking, that's not Mummy. But I couldn't say anything. And then Dr. Petriscus, or Dr. Mark, as I was made to call him throughout my younger years, released me into his care. And I was taken back to Engadine. I was taken back to Helen Holozak's house at 14 McAllister Avenue, and I was in there, and I remember being sitting in a chair, and I remember Leonis Petriscus just freaking out and pacing the room and talking in Polish or whatever, another language, to my grandmother, and they were all panicking and freaking out. And then I remember him subjecting me to unethical hypnosis and trying to make me forget the whole thing. And I remember I had a near-death experience during this. I went through a tunnel, and there was light at the end of the tunnel. I painted that tunnel on my bedroom wall at 40 Oringo Street, Budgewoi, when my mum and brother and I did a mural on my bedroom wall, and I painted the tunnel, and I told my mum, that's the time tunnel, that's the Doctor Who time tunnel. And I knew it was the tunnel that I'd gone through when I died. You know, for those who say I'm making this up, live it and then tell me I made it up. I want to go now.
The ultimate thing was my children, nourishing them, helping them develop and all that. And that's why it seems like such like a contradiction in that, people, how did you let that happen? If I didn't have that strength, and the Lord, I couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. It's too bloody hard, to get up and keep going. It's like Fiona's still going, The girls, you know what they've had to deal with. And it's not finished yet, but what they've had to deal with, you've got to get up and keep going. You've got to get up and keep going,
How can a human being go through what I went through and survive it? And Steve kept saying, I can't believe that you can do this. I can't believe you can do this. And I'm like, well, neither can I.
I would walk on first when I was young, Peter would walk me. I'd walk on my own later on to Dr. Mark's house, but there was another house as well. And I would walk. I have vivid memories of being walked up this road by Peter, and getting to the end of this road and turning left, and down the end of that road is Engadine Boys Town. It's just you just turn left up there and Engadine Boys Town. You turn right up there and go around the corner and you got Dr. Mark's or Leonis Petriscus' medical centre. This is where Leonis Petriscus worked, Dr. Mark, Melov. Every person employed at this medical practice in the 70s and 80s were involved in the ritual abuse of myself and other children, and crimes and murders and covering up murders and writing false medical reports to cover for the crimes that they committed. The Sutherland Shire, and especially around Engadine Waterfall area. A number one rule within that environment, that world, is number one rule is there is no fight club. There is no fight club. There is no fight club. We don't exist. That's number one rule. Second rule is never Never put your own personal interests, desires, passions, fetishes, whatever, before the common good. Never. And Bailey violated the good of the coven, well, the good of the order. It's not the coven. Covens are little groups. The good of the order. I used to walk here myself, where I had the privilege of being sexually abused by Leonis Petruscus, otherwise known as Dr. Mark. I don't remember this house. This wasn't here. But this is the general location that I was made to walk down. I've handed in police statements about what happened in this area. I was sexually abused by Leonis Petruscus, and the red-headed woman who was associated with the Engadine policeman. And I've made detailed statements about being abused here when I was about 15. The sexual abuse at the hands of Peter Holozak stopped at about age 12. Well, it did stop at age 12. I remember the day I had the argument with him. And that was after Dr. Mark, as I knew him, said, no more, he's not to touch you anymore. And then Dr. Mark was only allowed to touch me. Pretty exclusive.
I thought he was so young. I thought he was about 32, 34. I can still remember, and he was a very slight man. And, but what really stuck in my head was that she called him Dr. Mark, because in those years you didn't ever speak to a doctor by their Christian name.
Not only as her friend do I believe her, but and I am a person that needs strong evidence for things, but there's a lot of circumstantial evidence. Yeah, there's a lot of and it needs to be looked at.
And people don't realise that these things happen. And since this, I have grown immensely as a person because I was so naive. I didn't think that there were people like this. I didn't think people did this kind of stuff. I didn't know that people hurt children just because they think it's fun. I really, honestly, I was so naive. I didn't think there were people like this in the world until this happened.
So I'd usually be walked to this church where they perform satanic rituals. I saw multiple sacrifices committed here. This is a stone altar. Very easy to clean. Chloe, who was 4, she was murdered here. Little 4-year-old girl, beautiful with those green come-to-bed eyes and very dark classic bob haircut. She was the daughter of the red-headed woman who was at Garrawara Cemetery. She was the partner of the fat Engadine policeman. I remember him sitting in here and everything. He used to walk. He was really overweight, and he used to walk like that with his hands turned to the back. So I saw Chloe killed right here, and then after her death, her mother, the red-headed mother, went insane, and she was bumped off as well because she became a liability. Father Evans, he was convicted for pedophilia, and he was connected to this place. So it was nothing for me to walk, to Engadine Boys Town, Australia's first boys' town. The original Engadine Boys Town. My father was abused here.
A reject from the coven.
Was he?
No, Frank wasn't like that at all. No, he wanted that stable family situation because he'd never had it. He only knew abuse in his home. He was so badly treated that he used to roam the streets all night until his mother came home from on the last train from work and meet her up at the station. So he had no home life to speak of.
he was quite normal until I think he started working with acid and cleaning houses with acid, and I think that has a toll on your liver. And then he started drinking, and that has a toll on your liver, and he just became violent. And he hung around the Black family, as we said, which I didn't know about till my mother was interviewed.
She said that wasn't Dad, that was, what'd you say, the devil inside, yeah. And that's what it was like. It was like something had taken him over.
We can't even see anything, do we? Okay, let's go a little way down, okay? Let's go a little way. We just want a clearing where we can see the ledges. Now, this is so overgrown. Okay, so we've like trekked through the bush, trying to find a particular murder scene at the weir. And this, in the 70s, when I was a child, was an extremely popular swimming hole. And there was a big dam wall, and we called this the weir. We used to be able to just walk down a dirt track all the way down there. And on that side of the weir, one night, it was a moonlit night, it's where they murdered the 12-year-old that I saw abducted from, it's either Heathcote Road here or something that looked a lot like it. And they, I was in the back of a car, and they abducted a 12-year-old girl who was walking by the road. She was wearing red and white, T-shirt and shorts. She had long brown hair. I just remember she had long brown hair, and pretty girl. And when we stopped over to talk to her, she knew them. And they I was in the back right-hand passenger side of the car, and she jumped in the back left. And they handed her some candy. I think it was laced. And this poor girl, there was about, I can't remember, there's a group of men circled around her in robes. But a lot of them were priests from Engadine Boys Town, and various people. And what they did was they hanged this girl to death on the ledge, and then they sodomised her. And as they sodomised her dead body, the remaining men stood around masturbating. And I saw all of this. And then they made me think they were throwing her body in the weir. And then I can remember being frightened of swimming. My father used to make me swim across the weir. And there used to be like a little, I don't know, some sort of motor pump house or something on the side. And I just have this image of going, I just don't want to touch any dead bodies, like while I'm swimming, because I didn't like murky waters. And to this day, I don't like swimming in waters where I can't see what's underneath because of this experience. And I remember swimming across, because this happened when I was 6. And I remember swimming after that, not long after that, and thinking, please don't let me touch any dead bodies with my toes. I just don't want to touch any dead bodies. And I remember being terrified when we used to come as a family and swim here. We swim here all the time. So they sodomised her. And then the next thing I remember, seeing her body was transported to Holsworthy Army Barracks, and we went through a side gate off Heathcote Road, and we were met by Chan. He seemed a lot more powerful than just someone who was in the reserves. My experience of him was, and that girl was, well, I'll talk about that when we get to Holsworthy's. I just remembered as we're climbing up the hill, I forgot to tell you about Stephen, who he raped me also on that ledge. So while those men were busy with and Peter Holozak was there, he was one of the ones raping her. But while they were doing all that, this guy who fancied me pulled me aside, a pedo, and raped me violently. And I had to relive all that in the police statement, and I really had to detail it for the first time in my life. And that was an unsanctioned rape. I wasn't to just be touched by anybody. And he paid for it with his life later on, when I was about 14. He was burnt at the stake. No, he was bashed to death at the dog breeder's house. He was tied to a stake, bashed to death, and so all in all, rather nasty experience.
She has a voice. She is articulate. You wouldn't know it to speak to her, but in her writing and she gives other people a voice, and she does it well.
I'm not stopping for some stupid reason. I mean, I can't stop. I'm compelled to keep going. This is not just about me. This is about a whole bunch of victims that are not here to give voice themselves to what they experience. This is not just me. I represent a whole thousands of people behind me,
Amen.
babies and adults and children and whatever, right? And I'm very conscious of that.
And to see the pain and anguish she's in, it's not something you put on. So those reactions are real.
This is Holsworthy Army Barracks. It's one of the side entrances.
We're going to hold it here. And stay tuned for part 3 of Fiona Barnett, Candy Girl documentary. Bill Luciano, eyes to see, ears to hear news coming at you, documentary style. Love you. Pray for you always. Please, happy Halloween. Share it with somebody you know.